I've been a zero carb carnivore athlete for over a year now and has massively improved both my health and my athletic abilities. And so today I want to share with you why you should consider swapping to a high fat ketogenic diet instead of the standard high carb diet that everyone recommends. I genuinely believe that it is a game changer for athletes like you and me. And so I want to share this with anyone who will listen. If you don't know me, my name is Keagan, and like I said, I've been a carnivore athlete for over a year now. It's changed my life, and I tell people how it's changed my life and how they can start as well. So with that, let's talk about the reasons why you should consider a high-fat ketogenic diet. And so the first reason why that you should switch to a ketogenic carnivore diet instead of high carb is because fat adaptation, after you obtain it, will give you all of the energy you could possibly want or need. And so the reason why I bring this up is because whenever you recommend quitting carbs, a lot of people say, oh, what? No, but you need carbs in this like weird carb addict manner, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But really, you don't need carbs for energy. You could run off of completely just fat, just eating fat and protein, and you'd be perfectly fine because you're going to make your own carbohydrates. You're going to make your own glucose. And the reason why that's important is because you will replenish your own glycogen stores, which is basically the internal source of energy for your muscles, right? It's what your muscles burn is the stored carbohydrate whenever you're exercising. They'll burn that and fatty acids, basically, especially whenever you're in a more fat burning state. You're going to burn fat, you'll burn glycogen. If you're doing like higher intensity exercise, you'll burn more of that glycogen and stuff. But here's the thing, your body's going to make its own glycogen, and it replenishes faster whenever you are fat adapted than if you were sucking down sugar water. It replenishes at the same rate or faster. So really, there's no reason why you should be taking in carbs unless you like, stuffing your face and, facing the potential GI distress of like slamming a bunch of food down your face, trying to, keep your blood sugar elevated so you can, resynthesize the glycogen. But you're going to do that anyways if you're just eating a high-fat ketogenic diet. So there's really no worry in terms of, the stored carbohydrate. Maybe you won't have as, big watery muscles as you would before, but those are just going to weigh you down, especially as an athlete. And so I think that for that reason, honestly, fat adaptation is pretty good. But here's the thing. If you're adapted to burning your fat stores, and you're primarily running on fat, remember, your glycogen stores are going to be replenished by your fat and kind of the energy that you just have on hand, right? But here's the thing. In your fat stores, okay, you have, even in lean people, like 20, 30 times the amount of energy than you could possibly store in your glycogen. So I ran the numbers, and me personally, I'm around 15 to 16-ish% body fat, maybe a little bit higher than that. Right now, if I were to say I was 145 and I was at roughly 16-ish% body fat, I would have 80,000 calories worth of fat stores. Now, obviously, some of that you probably couldn't dig into without having serious problems. Like if I got down all the way to like 1% body fat, yeah, like, okay, I'd be having problems. But that still gives me a runway of like 60,000 calories in kind of a reservoir that I can use for anything. Now, no one's going to burn 60,000 calories within any endeavor unless they don't eat and they're running like ultra marathons every single day for like a year straight. That's the thing. You have so much more in your fat stores than you could possibly store in your glycogen. So compare that 80,000, and let's just even remove that. Let's just say I have 60,000 of like surplus energy that I can run off of. Compare that to my glycogen. I can store, I'm relatively muscular, so I can store roughly like 500 grams. If I stuff my face full of carbohydrates, and some of it ends up getting stored, and maybe I work out beforehand to get like the glycogen synthesis going, I could store maybe 500 grams, maybe a little bit more, right? That's 2,000 calories. Because remember, carbohydrates calorically aren't as dense as fats. So me storing 2,000, just compare that 2,000 calories of glycogen compared to the 60 extra thousand calories of fat that I have access to. But here's the thing, if you're eating carbs, you don't have access to those fat stores. You can't use that energy because your insulin is elevated, and that blocks your ability to mobilize your fat stores for energy. So you're kind of stuck. And that's why people, whenever they're running, their marathons and stuff, and they're carbing up, and whenever they hit that wall, they have to take more carbs. Otherwise, they just bonk and they can't. It's like, because their body is running super, super low on glycogen. Their body's like, hey, our insulin's still up. We can't do anything with the fat stores. You have to slow down. And your body's going to basically command you to slow down. But if you start in a place where you have so much extra abundant energy, you're going to have more than enough. And so I hope that I made that point abundantly clear, like the fat stores you have, that you will have way more than you could possibly need for one exercise bout or one game or whatever, if you have access to your fat stores, if you're in a ketogenic, fat burning state. And the really great thing about this is, like, even if you've been eating carbs for, your entire life, like I was before a year ago, you can still get fat adapted relatively quickly. It only takes around 2 to 3 weeks before you start really getting into like a deeper fat adaptation. And you could taper it and stuff, but I really recommend just like cutting out and going straight for it. And so if you want to get onto a ketogenic carnivore diet, and you've been struggling and you just kind of want a guide and a roadmap for the first 21, 30 days or so, then I made a course for that specific reason down in the description that you can go check out. It'll walk you through the sort of how to do it, the common pitfalls, how to troubleshoot it, etc., etc. And so I hope that helps you out if you want to go check that out in the description. So the second reason why you should consider a ketogenic carnivore diet over the standard high carb diet is, even if you disregard all of the performance stuff, okay, which I think is very valid, you will have better health if you don't eat carbs. Now, why is that? Because again, people will say, oh, but carbs are essential. No, they're not. If you eat carbohydrates in any dose, it's going to raise your blood sugar, okay? And for people who are insulin sensitive, this isn't a super big deal, because your insulin will go up, it'll bring your blood sugar back down to where it needs to be, and all will be hunky-dory. It'll push all of the stuff, all the sugar into your muscles. But why does that happen in the first place? If carbs are so great for us, why does our insulin go up to shove it out of our bloodstream immediately? If carbs were so great for our body, why doesn't it want it circulating everywhere? Why does it try and push it away? It's because if your blood sugar gets too high and it's consistently risen too high, glycation occurs. Glycation is whenever a glucose molecule or a sugar molecule, right, floats around in your bloodstream, it will eventually just start binding to shit. It'll just start binding to random cells in your body. If it isn't broken down, or if it isn't put into a specific place, it's going to start binding to things and start damaging them. And that's how you get stuff like AGEs, which are called advanced glycation end products. So literally eating too much sugar and having that chronically elevated is going to age you. But even just eating sugar in general is going to age you. That's not good. That's why your body pushes this stuff away using insulin into your muscles. And that's why whenever you are burning carbohydrates, whenever you're eating them, you're preferentially burning them because your body's like, oh, we need to get rid of this stuff. There's too much. It's overflowing and it's going to damage you. So carbohydrates are just toxic to you at a certain dose. Like, talk to any diabetic, especially like type 2 diabetics. They can get, like retinopathies in their eyes. Their eyes literally start getting damaged because their blood sugar's too high. They go blind. They can get amputations because of the damage in their extremities. That's insane. So high blood sugar is not good for you. Again, if you're insulin sensitive, you can get away with it for a little bit. But think about these people who are, literally preaching that you should be eating like a bazillion carbs every single day if you're an athlete. You need to have this carb. You need to eat this amount of carbohydrates per pound of body weight if you want to perform. And sure, that's true. If you're eating carbohydrates, more carbohydrates are probably going to make you perform better. That's just the truth, because that's the system that you're running on. Now, is that a good thing? I absolutely disagree, because again, they're toxic to your body. So imagine day after day, you're elevating your insulin, you're elevating your blood sugar. You're going to run into the same problems that diabetics run into, because that's how they got to being type 2 diabetic in the first place, is by eating a bunch of carbohydrates. Their insulin is chronically raised, they get insulin resistance, and then, looks like you're type 2 diabetic. Suddenly, you have a bunch of other like type 2 diabetes leads to so many other problems. I think it's like 1,000% chance of you getting heart disease if you have type 2 diabetes. That's insane. They will raise the inflammation in your body. They are toxic to you, and even if it won't kill you today, it's slowly going to creep into your body, especially as you age, and is probably going to age you faster. Remember the AGEs. So there's that. And with this slow creeping, like even if you're an athlete, even if you're running around a bunch and you're burning the carbs off, that's great, but you cannot outrun diabetes. It will eventually catch up to you if you're eating a ton of carbohydrates. It's going to catch up to you. And so if you remove all of those things by eating a ketogenic carnivore diet, you will be better off. You will be healthier. And that's going to lead to more longevity in the sport that you love. Imagine this. You have less inflammation in your body. You're able to heal faster. You're able to play your sport longer because you aren't getting any of like these weird morbidities like diabetes or heart disease because you've been eating carbohydrates. Imagine that. You're able to play the sport that you love longer because you're in better health. And not only that, but you get to live longer. You get to live healthier because you aren't poisoning yourself day over day. So that's definitely something that you should consider. And so moving on to the third reason why you should switch to a ketogenic carnivore diet is because the lie that, all high-level athletes eat carbohydrates, you need to eat carbohydrates if you want to be, a high-level athlete, is completely false. It's a lie, like I said. And so what do I mean by that? A lot of times, high-level athletes, in their rise to getting there, a few things occur. One, the coaches that, in their college programs or in whatever, training block that they're in, the status quo is that, you need to eat a bunch of carbohydrates, even though that's not necessarily the case. And so the status quo is going to force people, regardless, through the same filter. You need to eat carbs, high carbs, high carbs, high carbs. Some people don't listen, but a lot of people do. Okay, they'll listen to their coach. They'll be like, okay, I'm going to eat this. And some people, they can work on that. But just think about that. That filters out, that automatically selects out the people who could have been elite athletes, who would have done way better had they just not had the high carbs, had they done a low carb or a ketogenic carnivore diet. So there's that, the status quo. The second thing, incentives. How many sports brands out there are a ketogenic, fat-based sort of energy brand? Not that many, right? There's maybe a few. How many sports brands out there, sports performance brands like energy drinks, are there that have a carb base? There's mega ones, like there's the Gatorade, the Powerade, all those sports drinks that you look at that you can drink. All of those are carb and sugars. There's a ton of those like gels. It's a massive, massive thing. And if athletes want to get sponsorships to, live their life and to continue doing what they love to do, even if they don't necessarily agree with it, they're still going to be like, oh yeah, rep this brand. I use it every day, even though sometimes they may not. Just to, support their livelihood, their lifestyle. I'm not hating the player, hate the game, okay? So that makes sense. There's incentives for it. A lot of athletes have been forced through the system and it's automatically selected them out. And so on those two things alone, like you should be able to kind of see like, okay, well, there's a reason why most high-level athletes eat a ton of carbs. Okay, that makes sense. But it's not true that all high-level athletes eat carbs. A ton of athletes nowadays are switching to a low-carb ketogenic diet and seeing amazing results in their performance. And it's across sports. It's not like just the ultra endurance people, and it's not just the weightlifters and like those sorts of people, like the super anaerobic sports. It's none of that, because you don't require carbs for any of that. There's so many examples. There was the 2015 World Cup cricket team champions, right? I think it was like South Africa or New Zealand. They were low carb whenever they did that. The All Blacks rugby team for New Zealand, they are running a lower carb lifestyle. Many professional rugby players do a ketogenic carnivore diet. There's many NFL players in, American football that do a ketogenic carnivore diet. Erling Haaland, like the Norwegian striker, bro. He's ginormous and he's a freak athlete. Carnivore diet. There's so many examples. And I think the biggest one that you could pull is Michael Jordan. Even if he wasn't necessarily full carnivore or a full ketogenic athlete, before his game, he wouldn't eat anything. But leading up to it, 4 hours before the game, he would eat a big steak before every single game. Maybe not necessarily full ketogenic, I don't know what else he ate, but he would always eat a big steak along with his game. That's not carbs. So, look, I'm just saying, if Michael Jordan's eating steak before games, I'm going to be eating steak before games. But there's so many examples, and you could probably find a ton of other examples of people switching to this diet, becoming more healthy, improving their performance, and having a greater time. So it's a fallacy, it's a lie to say that, high-level athletes eat carbs. It's the status quo. There's incentives behind it. Of course, it's going to seem like most athletes are doing it this way because that's how it's been enforced. But now with people starting to kind of wake up and realize like, this isn't like what it's all been, choked up to be, what it's all been coughed up to be. I don't know what this specific saying is. I sound retarded right now, but I think you get what I mean. It's not that it's all, said to be. They're switching to it, and some of them are just keeping quiet about it because it is actually helping their performance a lot more. So I hope I kind of debunked that a little bit. And, I've noticed in my own life that I have performed way, way better whenever I have been eating carbohydrates. And even if it didn't make my performance better, let's just say it made my performance 10% worse. Okay, I'm still going to take that trade-off because even though maybe I won't perform at my absolute 100% peak best, think about that over the lifetime. Like I said about the health, those things still apply. The fact that carbohydrates mess with your health, they can cause you to overeat like they did myself. They can easily pull you out of being an athlete in the first place by overeating, making you obese, giving you chronic diseases that you never want in the first place. So I would take that, even if it was there, which it isn't, even if there was like a 10% hit, I would still do it every single day because my health to me is more worth it. And this massively improved my health, and as a consequence, it's massively improved my performance. Just as one last anecdote that I want to kind of leave you with before we end this video. I remember so I'm a senior in high school right now, and I played soccer and I did track. And so throughout the soccer season, what I did was we were at this practice, and we were doing a drill where we were passing the ball around, and there's a lot of running, right? A lot of cardio. It was a really fun drill. And I was having a great time. I was smiling, laughing, and I was just, running back and forth. I was, really moving. My heart was pumping a lot, but I wasn't tired at all. And there was this slightly younger guy behind me on my team, and he was like trying to guard me. He was behind me. He was like kind of gassed out. We got to the stopping point, and he was like panting. He was like, "Oh, do you have so much cardio?" And I was like, "I don't. Like, yes, I do run around a lot, and I am a relatively fit person, but I genuinely believe it's the way that I eat that has helped me get to where I am. Like, I'm not a stellar athlete, but how I've been eating has massively improved from where I was. And it's also made me feel like a bazillion times better. And so that's kind of the last anecdote that I want to leave you with. So to wrap everything up, try a ketogenic carnivore diet. It doesn't have to be ultra strict, like, you can do like carnivore, yeah, you can do like a carnivore-esque sort of diet if you want to add in some like vegetables and maybe keep the carbs in a little bit, but like keep them really, really low so you can actually get fat adapted. And, really give it a good try. Give it 30 days. Give it, if you want a full 90 days to get like fully, fully fat adapted. But even with those first 30 days, I think you'll notice a really big change. A lot of people in those first 2 weeks or so, they'll find that their energy maybe is a little bit lower. And that's because it takes a little bit of time to get fat adapted. So don't write it off immediately if you feel a little bit low energy in the beginning. Just give it some time, allow your body to get fat adapted, and see how you feel. And again, if you want help and accountability getting onto a ketogenic carnivore diet because you want to try it out and you need some accountability, or you just want to know kind of the specific details on how to do it and some pitfalls that you can avoid, then definitely try it. Definitely look into the description for my course, which I'll cover all of those things. So with that, I hope you found this video helpful. Yeah, do all the YouTube stuff. I've been Keagan. I'll see you in the next one.